I never really paid attention in church, but there was something that drew me to the Bible on some level. And I was 7 years old, and I laid 5 Bibles out on my grandmother's floor. I still remember the smell of the floor. I remember the little rug that she had. And there was that typical picture of California surfer Jesus that looks like me, kind of looking up toward the light that everybody had. But I laid out a 1611 King James Bible, a King James Bible, a New King James, all three of which are completely different from each other, if you don't know that. A Koine Greek translation, and I don't remember what the fifth one was, and she reminded me of this several times before her passing. I laid them all out next to each other, and I opened up to the Gospel of Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the mourners, blessed are the meek. And I don't have a clue what motivated me to do this. I just laid the 5 Bibles next to each other, and every single one, in almost every single instance, every single verse said something not just a little different, not just a little textually different, something that a 7-year-old's not going to pick up, but something completely different in all 5 versions, glaringly obvious, so much so that a 7-year-old can go, well, duh, this doesn't even say the same thing. So I started hearing words like the inerrant word of God, things like that, and I started questioning it. I will say this, in all of my Aramaic studies and everything I teach with Aramaic in the last couple of decades, the hardest word to translate from ancient Aramaic into any other language, especially modern English or Koine Greek, is the word word. Milta, which is logos in Greek, which also in Greek it is not a word on a page. Lexis or Lego in Greek is a word on a page. So I want to lay one little foundation here just with a quote from St. Francis of Assisi, because I'm probably going to come back to this a few times. And this is in direct relation to that word. In the beginning was the word, in Aramaic, berashit etawi hua milta. St. Francis said, what you are looking for is what is looking. What you are looking for is what is looking. The love, the peace, the presence, the spirituality, the aliveness, the ecstasy, the joy, whatever it is that you seek is actually the one seeking that through you, seeing through you. And literally, there's nothing you need to become. There's nothing you need to learn. There's nothing that you need to add into your energy body in order to become complete, because you already are complete. And before I get rolling, I want to explain that with just a little piece here. Anybody that has ever read the Bible, which one, Dale? If you've ever read the Bible, there's a neat little teaching. Yeshua said, if I gave you a light, would you hide that light below what? Anybody know that phrase? If I gave you a light, would you hide that light below a bushel basket? Now let me explain something to you. That word bushel in Aramaic sounds like this, satah. Satah means to take something and fragment it away from itself. Satah is like a cup that goes into cornmeal, and you've got this big, huge basket of cornmeal, and you scoop this out. The thing that's doing the scooping is called satah. It's the thing that cuts something away from its source. Satah is the root of the word satana, which ultimately turned into Satan. And satana means a being or a consciousness, an awareness, a point of light, a consciousness, a being divided against itself. So what happens when we start to acquire all these beliefs and we study and become experts in things, we start piling all these things on top of the light, intriguingly. And we become an expert. And I did that for a long time. I became an expert in so many different things, ancient languages and all this stuff. It took a while before I realized that it wasn't what I was learning that was making the difference. It was actually the things that I was willing to let go of. Those little places in my consciousness where I wasn't clinging on to some kind of a belief, but I was just allowing it to open up, allowing that to be open. We're going to come back to this idea several times tonight. So there was almost like there were certain parts of my life or my energy body that was completely open and would be able to embrace a particular situation, experience, whatever, person. And there was other areas that seemed to be blunt. Like I can be real spiritual with anyone except that one person. They walk into the room and I go, So there seem to be these really clear places in my consciousness where light seemed to be getting through and other places where it wasn't. And it's interesting because in terms of humanity, that's exactly what's been happening. You can look at some of these and say, okay, this one's the Buddha, and that one's Lao Tzu, which actually in Chinese just means old man. That would be, pick another. Is Krishna a real person? Probably not. Jesus, but since we're in the West, you got to make it big. Yogananda, Eckhart Tolle, you need a modern one. So it became real obvious for a while when people were waking up in humanity because it was obvious that there was a light going on around them. But what's happening now is so many of them are popping up, all these are starting to connect. And all of a sudden, all these places of unconsciousness aren't as easy to see anymore. But what's most intriguing to me, and it's something that I've been thinking about since I was 7 years old, how many lights are there here? How many lights are showing through this darkness? One. There's only one. And that's the one, in the words of Alan Watts says that we are the universe looking at itself from billions of points of view, renewing itself in each moment so that the vision remains fresh. So it's like the idea of looking at Jesus as an example as one point of this light that is somehow more important than another point. Does that make any sense to you? We're going to talk about that. It's absolute insanity, as a matter of fact, that one point, one dot somehow is more important than another. Even better that you accept that one dot as being the only manifestation of the one, and somehow accepting that keeps you from having to do any kind of work on your own. That whole idea comes from ancient Egyptian mythology and philosophy, and we're going to start uncovering some of that tonight, particularly with the Magdalene teachings. Magdalene's an interesting subject because if you read 50 books about Mary Magdalene, they all say something different and they all say they're correct and they all have the references to back it up. It's a complex thing. I'm going to be focusing specifically on the energy processes and the mythology about that from ancient Egypt and how that fed the Magdalene story and the Jesus story. There's things that are in those two there's things in Christianity, in the standard everyday Christian teachings, that even the most world-renowned scholars who have been teaching at these massive theological seminaries for 70 years have no clue are right there in front of their face. It's an amazing thing. They said that these secrets would remain concealed until humanity was able to comprehend them, and that's one piece I want to give you is that word secret in ancient Aramaic is sod. Sod. It's where the word sod comes from. Secret means this. You hear about secret teachings. It doesn't necessarily mean that they put them off in a box and you weren't allowed to look at them. Secret actually means something that you've seen over and over thousands of times. It's been right in front of your face, but you've never seen its true nature. You've only ever seen the nature of what your BS, your belief systems, lay upon it, your bushel baskets. So you've never seen it. You've just seen some kind of whacked out interpretation. And that's what our mind does. But what happens is as all these points of light start opening and awakening, all of a sudden you're seeing things you couldn't see before. And people will look and say, oh, well, back in the 1950s, everything was great and it was white picket fences and the manicured lawns and Leave It to Beaver and all. But what's intriguing is we ask for higher light, greater awareness, faster vibration. But with that light, awareness, and vibration comes the responsibility to be able to see things that you couldn't see before. Because the energy body's open, your light is wide open right now. Which is why you feel so, fucking raw and exposed all the time and vulnerable. How many times have you had it in the last couple of years where there's a wave of energy and you go, what was that? We'll talk about that a little. This is the point in time we are the ones. It said that this was going to remain concealed until we could comprehend it. Well, guess what? We can comprehend it. But we've got a choice now that either, there's a reason you're all here, everybody on this festival site, but specifically you right now, because a lot of people, if I go out and talk to them about the world, I'm going to hear about hell in a handbasket and falling apart and everything's breaking down. And I'm like, well, where's the bad in that necessarily? But when I see you, what I see isn't the soil that's being displaced as this lotus is birthing through. I see you looking at the lotus. And I see you looking at what's real rather than the cracking apart and the falling away of the dream and the bushel baskets that everybody else is trying to hold on to. Because when you hold on to that, guess what? It feels like you're freaking dying. It literally feels like you're dying, if that's how you relate with the world. I'll talk about my book a few times, Echoes of an Ancient Dream. I'm totally sold out right now. You can get it on Amazon, but I called it Echoes of an Ancient Dream, number one, because that's exactly what we're in right now. We're in a dream, and in terms of what happened 2,000 years ago, we're really only able to read the echoes of that. And even what happened 2,000 years ago was a dream. And even Edgar Cayce, who spoke so much about the Akashic records of humanity, said that anyone with proper know-how can go into that library system of psychic energy and alter what's there so that even the past can be changed. And even science says you can change the past. So all of the rules that we had up to this point aren't there, and we're walking on these tectonic plates that are shaking and breaking apart so much that there's almost no more plates to stand on. It's just we're in this fluid state of flux where it's a flow that the more you try to hold on, the more you're going to break down. Because what's holding on isn't what's real. What's real is what's flowing. What's real is that one. And there's nothing you can think, feel, believe, proselytize about, teach about the one that is anything to do with the one. Because the one is unknowable. Because that's you, which is not separate from the one. We're starting to wake up to this. We're in the generation of light now. So one of the things I do to open up the space with a lot of my events, almost always, is toning. Toning's a process. Probably a lot of people here have done it before. Toning's a process that goes back so far, we really don't know how far it goes back. We're going to make a few sounds to open up the energy here. First sound, actually, I'm wearing this necklace, Ra. We'll talk about Ra quite a bit today, Horus. Ra's a sound that probably goes back to ancient Akkadian or Phoenician or Sumerian. We don't know where it actually comes from, but let's explain it a little, okay, before we tone this. That there would be called Ra. Ra is a direct masculine light. What does a direct masculine light mean? It means obvious. Everybody can see that light, right? Ra. Ra. It was represented by the light of the sun, which was the mythological archetype of the light of God. It only knows itself. Anything it can see is a reflection of itself, but it doesn't see the reflection because there's only itself. It's kind of like an overly masculinized man. It's all about what they want, their stuff. It's about the physicality and sports and racing and all that kind of stuff. And what the feminine wants isn't really that interested if it's that far out of balance. And I'll tell you this, there's nothing more terrifying to an over-masculinized human than open, creative, powerful, feminine sexual energy. It scares the living hell out of the masculine. Scares it, and it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman who's wide open and express. My wife at my events wears, see-through clothes, and she absolutely lets herself completely shine, and that terrifies the living crap out of some of the Bible thumpers that'll show up to my stuff. But that also could be a flamboyantly gay, wide-open man that's very feminine. It also scares the living crap out of over-masculinized energy. What more beautiful self-balancing system, a singularity continuum could it be than one that after thousands of years of masculine misogyny, a focus on physicality, focus on words, focus on what men want, then after thousands of years of that, finds a way to bring more feminine essence through masculine human beings and more masculine essence through feminine human beings, so that if we can be awake enough, hopefully we can be mature enough to realize that masculine and feminine has nothing to do with innies and outies. Because it has absolutely nothing to do with the physical, because the physical is not real anyway. It has to do with the essence as that consciousness sees through each of those points of entry. I don't know how many people I know in Asheville who feel that they're a woman trapped in a man's body or a man trapped in a woman's body. And we're in that battleground state where that whole frickin' HB2 thing is happening. And it's a little bit embarrassing. Governor McCrory, our great corporate attorney for Duke Power for 21 years, that's the governor of North Carolina, just signed fracking into law in North Carolina 3 days ago. Not only did he sign it into law, he put it on the fast track. When he signed it on that frickin' table, Duke Power were standing right there. Representatives from the corporation were right there. And this is the guy that did the whole, the bathroom thing. And I'll tell you this, you come to Asheville, all the bathrooms are gender neutral. And if you're in Asheville and you know whether it's a man or a woman, you probably don't, because it's the whole thing. What I'm telling you is, this is a system that's been thrown so far out of balance that's bringing itself back into balance. And it was all about the goddess 2,500 years ago, and then it swung all the way toward the masculine. Well, now it's coming back, and there's going to be a little bit of an overshoot, but we're restoring universal balance. It's something much different. It's not going to swing totally and completely back into the feminine. We're going to find something that's going to be much more calibrated to the whole truth of what life really is. So that sound, Ra, is that direct light. It's the light of the sun. Now, this light that's on my hand, that's in Aramaic is called Nu-Ra. Nu-Ra. What does nu mean in English? Nu.
Like it's just been created?
Just been created, something fresh or unique. But how many lights are there? There's only one. Interestingly, in Aramaic, the first letter, the aleph, means the whole, the one, everything, and the last letter, the ta, was like a mirror, and it means a reflection of itself. So even the reflection is actually still the one light. Now, the light of the moon, what's unique about that versus sunlight? It's a reflection of sunlight. But what is it? It's sunlight. Now, the light of the sun was called Ra, which is the light of God. We're going into concepts, obviously. The light of the moon, Nu-Ra, was human light or human awareness, human consciousness. So if moonlight is a reflection of the sun, then human light is a reflection of the God light, the only light, Yahweh. There's a million words you can put in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to tone the sound Ra, and I'll probably talk about Ra a little later. Ra is a tone in ancient Egyptian in the Isis temples, was brought up what's called the central pillar, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And it's right there in the Christian teachings, right in front of everybody's faces, because the words are coded, they never saw it. And they were looking at the story and not understanding the energy of what was underneath it. But it was drawn up through the central pillar. Ra is that sound when you breathe out, which is the emptying of the energy body, the ka in Egyptian, haikla in Aramaic, and as you breathe in, Ra was drawn up, sometimes silently, sometimes audibly, through toning. We're going to tone Ra, we're going to do it 3 times, and then we're going to tone Nu-Ra. Now, if you're sitting in the mountains where I live, now I'm looking, there's nobody there, but everybody's looking to see who I'm pointing at. I'm pointing at the floor. But if you're sitting in the mountains in Asheville and you go up at the right time, you can see the sun, that feminine Nu-Ra, over the horizon. The sun hasn't come up yet. When you're not seeing it directly, it's called Nu-Ra, okay? It's feminine. When all of a sudden the sun pops above the horizon and you see it directly, it's called Ra. But guess what? It's the same light. You know that. And even this that I'll come back to several times tonight, this is not 2 different things. It's not a relationship. It's not interdependence. It is not some kind of balance. It's none of that. It's one singularity or continuum. And when you move to a particular part of that continuum, it's going to have different feelings or qualities about it. And that includes light, dark, positive, negative, masculine, feminine, past, future, awake, asleep, alive, dead, inside, outside, all of it. So we're going to kind of break that apart to what it really means tonight. So we're going to tone Ra 3 times. We're going to tone Nu-Ra 3 times. And what I would ask with Nu-Ra, just one little thing to keep a feel for, is as you make the Nu-Ra sound, since you have 2 syllables, allow it to be more feminine. So instead of going Nu-Ra, like men would love to do, allow it to be feminine like this. Here's an example of toning. Nu-Ra. tone for a while there. So you're just allowing it, just like a sunrise, moving. And there's no distinction between the indirect and the direct, okay? So we're going to tone Ra just with that pitch. It doesn't have to be on. It doesn't have to sound like freaking Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young or something. It doesn't have to be in harmony, although it is a lot of times. Sometimes it's complete cacophony, but we're going to tone Ra 3 times and then rest in silence. And then we're going to tone Nu Ra 3 times and then be in silence. After that, what's going to happen is I'm going to go into an ancient Aramaic tone poem to tone my way through that, first in Aramaic and then in a direct English experiential translation, meaning not theological, not about the belief systems the church impregnated, but a direct vibrational translation from 2,000-year-old Aramaic texts right into modern English. So first you're going to hear me and feel me move through the vibrations of it, and then you're going to hear a translation of that. And then we'll bring that toning aspect to a close. We'll be in silence for a bit, and then I'll go right into the subject matter. So right now, 3 Ras, and then 3 Nu-Ra. Okay? You ready? You want to get a good breath in through your nose. And you don't have to last until you turn blue and fall over, okay? Another good breath. One more wide open, let it ring out, and then silence. You are literally at the center of the universe right now. And that's all happening around you being that still point. So now 3, Nu-Ra, Nu-Ra 3 times and then silence. And then I'm going to go into that vibrational experience, okay? 3 Nu-Ras. One more. Now just be open for the next few minutes, okay? In the words of the Lakota, let the wind blow through you. Just let these vibrations move through and calibrate your energy body, okay? Just be open, be aware of your breath. Tete Malkuta Nehoit Viana Kanar Washmai Hablan Lachmadasun Kanan Yaumana Washbochlan Halbin Wakta Ila Patsan Men Misha Nehoit Viana Habbea Wila Tahlan Just be open, just be open, just be open. Our one absolute eternal being, of which we are born forth from the realm of the all and the only. I am empty within the ecstasy of your presence and the purity of the vibration of your name. Empower my creative expansion through your emergence from the unseen realms. As I realize our life and will as one on the manifest earth as in the unmanifest heavenly realms. Provide the nourishment of true insight and realization through me now and in each present moment. Release the echoes of my hidden past as I cancel all of my concerns with others. Do not let me lose my true self in forgetfulness, but wholly release me from the errors of my perceptions. For the undivided holiness is the absolute, the all, and the only. And our deep, intimate realization of the gratitude and grace of the light of the one through this moment now. From cosmic gathering to cosmic gathering, from age to age, from aeon to aeon, L'olam Alamin, forever and ever, from moment to moment, from now to now. May these pure intentions be the rooted, fertile earth center from which all my actions flow. And so it is. I could probably talk about each of the syllables of the root sounds in that prayer for about 6 hours each, and you would not get what you get just from the vibration itself. So I'm going to give you an example of why vibration is important. Why it's important to have something as close to its original written source that you're speaking of. That's called the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. It's a little different when you hear it in Aramaic, and especially when you get a direct translation without all of the theological stuff in it. Lord is a word that Mary Magdalene would never have called him. And he never called anybody Lord, and nobody ever called him Lord. How can I say it with 100% certainty? The word did not exist. It didn't exist 2,000 years ago. Does anybody know where the word Lord comes from? This is something that actually, I would bless their hearts, people that are absolutely well-versed experts in the Bible don't even have a clue. The word what's that? It's soon after. It's an Old English word. It was influenced by Anglo-Saxon. It comes in from feudalism in England around the 9th century. It comes from the word loaf ward. Loaf ward. He was the one that owned the land, owned the property. He was called the giver of life. He was called the bread giver. That's where the word Lord comes from. It was a codependent power person term, and it was all about feudalism. He was the guy at the top of the pyramid, at the bottom were the serfs and the peons, aptly named. The word Lord in Latin is dominos. Dominos. Now, domino is a cool game. It's got like the little, black and white. Never mind. Domino doesn't mean dominate in the way that we think of today, even though we use that syllable. Domino means dominion, which is a stewardship. It's exactly what's happening here right now. This is dominos. It means overall dominion, which is not a power. It's a subjugation of one's own seemingly external power so that life itself can live through you. The word in Greek is kurios. So we've got Lord in English, we've got dominos in Latin, we've got kurios in Koine Greek. Does anybody know what the word actually was in Jesus and Mary Magdalene's language? Most of the experts, I would say almost none of the experts know. I'm going to tone the word Lord as Jesus would have said it, and as Mary Magdalene would have referred to him, okay? I'm going to tone it once. This is the word Lord in Aramaic. Maria. Do you think maybe it's just a little bit important that we know that the vibration of the word that we spit out, Lord, is actually Maria? Interesting thing. Unfortunately, the Jesus and Magdalene teachings were flash frozen after all that theology and belief system and indoctrination and shifting and manipulation was flash frozen in the 17th century around the time of King James. And everything that people are saying now, the catchphrases, the lingo, and the words are actually only 500 years old when we're looking at a philosophy that's 2,000 years old or older. Now, Maria or Maria, the Rhea sound, Rhea, Ra, Rhea, Ora, are all ancient Aramaic root sounds that mean an expanding light. They all mean light, and they're all from Aramaic. Some of those sounds, Ra particularly, probably came from ancient Phoenician and also probably came through Sumerian. Now, the Mar sound in the beginning of Maria means a bedrock of strength. A bedrock of strength. It's where the word Mars comes from. It's a rock of strength. So what Maria or Maria means is, in the terms of Rhea, it literally means a feminine light, an expanding feminine light. So what Maria or Maria means is a feminine light that is expanding from a bedrock of strength. Maria or Maria. Now that's what the word Lord was. In other words, if you're holding a baby, anybody ever hold a baby the first couple days of its life? There's not light bulbs in its mouth like Uncle Fester on the Addams Family. It's not a light that you're seeing directly. It's sensed. It's something that's happening on a much deeper level. Those that exude that, and yet at the same time you feel that grounded, rooted earth strength, that's what Lord meant. Had nothing to do with a power person thing. Now here's the thing, if you put the letter mem at the end, which is like an M in English for Aramaic, you've got Mariam or Miriam, which is the name Mary. The word Mary is actually the word Lord, and it means an expanding feminine light, which is expanding from a bedrock of strength. We're going to unpack a couple things here that, like I say, they're secrets sawed. Secret not meaning that you weren't allowed to see it, but it's been right here under our noses the whole time, but we weren't able to comprehend it because we had our radio on the wrong frequency. We had lots of channels that were turned off. They were turned off by the church fathers, especially the shame. The shame frequency is an interesting one because it's got really loud ads, it's got loud commercials, and it's imprinted into our energy body over the last 200 or 2,000 years. And all they need to do to resonate your shame frequency is to show you, as an example, for a woman to show you pretty much any other woman in a lot of cases. You're going to have some kind of something going on, some kind of self-judgment going on, because particular frequencies have been embedded in our energy bodies, and the whole advertising industry is based on resonating those keys within you. And it doesn't matter if you want to feel it or not. I'm going to prove to you that you have absolutely no control over what you think, okay? In terms of advertising, okay? Don't think about Barack Obama. Sorry. You're thinking about him. I would have said Donald Trump, but I don't want you to throw shit at me, so I'd probably throw it at myself. Are you getting what I'm saying, though? Do you think it's maybe important? Let's tone the word Maria one time, one Maria, and see how it feels, okay? How's that feel? Feels pretty good, huh? So let's tone the word Lord one time, okay? See how this feels. You ready? One Lord. Lord. It's kind of difficult not to laugh, isn't it? Do you think maybe frequency is just a tiny bit important? You understand what I'm saying? So, in order to lay this bedrock, to be able to expand on Isis and Magdalene, I'm going to read a couple quotes from my book, neither of which are from me. The book's Echoes of an Ancient Dream, Aramaic Toning on the Path of Light. As I said, I got plenty of my CDs and DVDs and stuff, but we're sold out of the book. It's on Amazon. It's easy to get. The first quote is from Paramahansa Yogananda, from a book that was compiled after his death called Cosmic Chants, C-H-A-N-T-S. This is the first quote in the book. It says, sound or vibration is the most powerful force in the universe. Music is a divine art to be used not only for pleasure, but as a path to God realization. Vibrations resulting from devotional singing or toning lead to attunement with the cosmic vibration or the Word. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In Aramaic, that's Berashit etowi hua milta, wahal milta etowi hua loet elaha. All about frequency, not about our translation of. Now, this next quote, slightly longer. This is from the foreword to my book that was written by a really dear friend of mine. He's a musician. He's a guitar player that plays with full orchestras behind him, and he orchestrates every single freaking instrument, writes them out. He's known for playing with Frank Zappa, David Lee Roth, Whitesnake, all these different people. His name is Steve Vai. He's this incredible guy. Just got to spend a couple days with him about a month and a half ago on the coast of North Carolina. But what he says here, just in the first few sentences here, is really everything about or especially the Isis aspect of the Magdalene teachings that you can't even translate it into a religion, because a religion can't. It's unfortunate because the word religio in Latin means to reveal the ligaments, or how everything threads together. It means to reveal a direct experience. That sounds like religion, doesn't it? Maybe not. So this is from Steve. He says, everything is music. All things in creation are vibrational energies pulsating at various frequencies. On the physical plane, we see, taste, feel, smell, and hear vibrations that have frequencies within our sensory abilities to perceive them. The electrons spinning around the nucleus of an atom, the quarks within the nuclei, and the elements that make up the subatomic quantum levels are vibrating within a frequency spectrum that is contributing to the creation of elements that are beyond the limitations of the human senses. And that's a big key there, beyond the limitations of the human senses. Similarly, but on a much larger scale, the planets that spin around our sun create a vibrational voice as the solar systems move within a galaxy, within the infinite galaxies that move within the whole of physical creation, all weaving a multi-pitched celestial orchestra beyond the comprehension of the human senses. There's a lot going on that obviously that your senses can't touch. There's a lot of talk about thought, change your thoughts, change your life. And nothing could be a bigger pile of BS than change your thoughts, change your life. Because your thoughts have absolutely zero creative power whatsoever. Thoughts are the crystallization of feeling. Your thoughts are nothing more than focused upon crystallized feelings that are now enunciated and able to be expressed in words. But I'm telling you right now, the transformations and the paradigm shifts and the evolutions that humanity is going through right now, your thoughts can't touch it. And let me ask you a question. Those moments of transcendence when your heart is completely open and you feel like you're one with everything, you're completely nowhere and now here, you're everywhere and yet you don't exist. What's the one thing you're not doing? You're not thinking. Thought is the source of nothing because thought is nothing but the dream. Changing your thoughts will not change your life. Changing your thoughts changes your dream, which is what your projector is projecting upon the screen. Changing your thoughts is changing the film strip. It'll change your dream, but you're not what's projecting on the screen. That's your dream. You're not the film strip of what you're thinking. You're the light in the projector, but there's no screen, there's no film strip, and there's no projector. There's only... And the ancient Magdalene teachings, the ancient Isis teachings were there to get us back to the inexpressible. But it was told to us that sexuality is shameful. It was told to us that you should have the idea of original sin, somebody mentioned. It's a funny thing because in Hebrew in the Torah it says you are born as the original blessing of life itself. I like the way Eddie Izzard explains original sin. He's like, well, what's an original sin? Oh, I had sex with my neighbor's cat. He's like, it's not original enough. Go away, go away. You need an original one. It's amazing because for so long, Only the people with all the money had the Bibles, whether they were within the church or they had tons of money. And if they had tons of money, they were supporting the church anyway, so they could have Bibles. Because they were the ones that could afford pre-Gutenberg printing press to have somebody sit down for a year and hand copy it. And the more money you had, the better the copy. Which means that if a guy gets to the bottom of the page and he's been working on that page for 3 hours and you're really rich, he's got to throw the page away and go back to the beginning because it needs to be a perfect copy. And they never, ever, ever make mistakes when they copy things, right? Nobody ever mistranslates. No. It's the inerrant Word of God. All 17,500 plus versions of the Bible are the inerrant Word of God, even though none of them say the same thing. Even though you have to have at least 22% unique onto your edition of the Bible before you can even publish the damn thing. 22% has to be different than any other published version. That's inerrant, yes? We're looking at, the key here is that we're looking at, spend so much time trying to look for something. We're trying to find keys or answers when, again, I'm coming back to St. Francis, what you're looking for is what is looking. What you're looking for is that which sees through you. These teachings take us back to that. I'll give you another example. We think of the word spirit, spiritus. All the Jesus teachings are full of the word spirit. There's only one case where it's got the word breath. John 20:22, and it says Jesus, in the Christian teachings, it says Jesus breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Ghost. Boom! The Holy Ghost. Intriguingly, in Aramaic, it says Yeshua breathed with them and said, receive, the word translated as Holy Ghost, Ruha de Kudsha, the all-embracing breath of the One. Not at them, where he's got the power, but breathing them through. Now, at them is a masculine thing, meaning that it's something that's obvious and you can give it to someone. That translation was actually feminine, and it comes from ancient Egypt. What's the one thing that happens when you get into an experience that you can't handle? What do you stop doing? You stop breathing. That one person walks into the room. That phrase, love your enemies, in Aramaic, the word translated as enemy, for which there is no direct translation in English, it doesn't mean enemy. It means love those that you constrict your breath when you're in their presence. The ones that you stop breathing in the presence of. And that word, neighbor, love your neighbor as yourself, neighbor means any object of your attention. Not just the person beside you, but the water and the air and the trees and the person on the other side of the universe, or the one looking at itself in the mirror. And the word self in Aramaic is nafsha, which means breath of life. Love any object of your attention. Love anyone you think of as the breath of your life. That's something that's feminine. That's something that can't really wholly, fully be expressed in words. It's not masculine. It's about something that's within you. The thing we're continually doing, in the words of Joseph Campbell, is we are, especially in Christianity, not that I've called myself a Christian really ever. I kind of bought their socks and cheesy shirts and stuff for a while, and then but I never really got the membership card. But Joseph Campbell says that we continually mistake mythological archetypes as being references to historical facts. So we're looking at the stories thinking that it's about Mary Magdalene going here or there, or Jesus healing this person in this town, when 99.99999% of the chances are that it never happened. If you want to look into just the life of Jesus alone, Jesus, let's talk about somebody 1,500 years prior to him, Horus. Horus was born on December 25th of the virgin Isis-magdalene. 3 kings followed the star in the east to locate the newborn Savior. He was gifted in religious theology, teaching in the temple at the age of 12. At the age of 30, Horus was baptized by Anup, which began his public ministry. He traveled about with 12 disciples. He healed the sick. He raised the dead. He walked on water. He turned water into wine. He was betrayed by Typhon. He was crucified, dead for 3 days, and arose on the 3rd day. Horus was known as the way, the truth, and the life, the only begotten Son of God, the Lamb, the Good Shepherd, the bread of life, etc. And we're looking at the story, not understanding the cosmos of it, not realizing that on December 21st of every year, the sun moves down into the region of what's called the crux, the southern crux, which is an inverted cross that's just slightly sideways. The sun drops right into the center of the cross on December 21st, where it remains for 3 days. Late on December 24th, the three kings of Orion's belt line up. Early on December 25th, they point directly at Sirius, the star in the east, the dog star, which points directly at the sun, the only begotten sun, Ra, which is reborn off of the southern cross on the morning of December 25th, Christmas morning, the Christ Mass. Teaching in the temple at the age of 12 disciples. There's nothing actually prior to the retranslations of what eventually went into the Bible that said there was 12 disciples. Does anybody know where the 12 comes from? Why is there so many 12s? It's the zodiac. It's the zodiac, the 12 tribes of Judah, the 12 disciples, etc. We're going to get into some of that disciple stuff. So what I'm saying is we're looking at the physicality of the story. We look at the mythology of Isis and Magdalene, and then we miss the realization that it's not about a person. It's about our recognition of our own divinity, or as our own divinity. Even the word breath, we think of spirit. We don't think of the word spirit as, what does spirit mean? Yeshua said to Nicodemus, I'm laying this foundation of feminine and masculine in the teachings before we can really unpack the Magdalene aspects and the Isis aspects. In John 3, Yeshua said to Nicodemus that, he said, the wind comes and goes. You don't know where it's coming from or where it's going to, but you can hear its voice. The word for wind in Aramaic sounds like this, ruha. Ruha, it's ruach in Hebrew, it's ruch in Arabic. Ruha. Ruha means frequency or vibration, okay? It means wind, it means spirit, it means breath, it means heartbeat, it means electricity, it means magnetism, it means electromagnetism, it means cosmic expansion. Today it would mean nuclear forces. Those are all examples of ruha, which is frequency. Now the way it's translated in the Jesus teachings is him saying as it is with, the wind is as it is with spirit. But let me tell you something, the idea of spirit would have been completely foreign to them 2,000 years ago. Spiritus is a Latin word that's gendered masculine, which means it's something physical, which means it's something you can hold in your hand. My perception of this book in terms of language is feminine. The actual book itself is masculine. I'm not talking about two different things, I'm talking about two qualities of experience. Now, spiritus was a masculine word, which means it's physical, which is why if I say to you, show me an example of spirit, some of you will go point at yourself, but really your brain's going, spirit. But what if I told you the way they would have understood it in the first century is breath? You hear the wind come, you hear it go, you can hear it. As it is with ruha. He wouldn't have gone and flapped his arms, meaning spiritus, because the word didn't exist in their region yet. It was almost 200 years before they would have heard that word. He would have gone, as it is with ruha. You don't know where it's coming from, you don't know where it's going to, but you can feel its voice. Now here's the last key before we really get into the Magdalene aspect, okay? What is this that I feel on my arm? What's that? It's not a trick question. They're all trick questions with me, but what is that? What do we call it? Breath, right? Intriguingly, what I feel on my arm in the ancient Aramaic understanding is actually hot air. Because breath wasn't the thing that moves through my lungs. It wasn't the air moving through my lungs that breath meant. It was actually my feminine perception of its movement or frequency or vibration. You get the difference there? It's not about the thing itself, it's about your awareness of it. Ruha is heartbeat. It's not about the beating heart, it's about your awareness of it. Wind, but it's not about the wind that was ruha, it's your feminine awareness of it. The Magdalene teachings were all about feminine awareness. They were all about Gnosticism, which does not mean knowledge in the way that we think of it today. It means direct experience or realization. It's really hard to write direct experiences down on paper. It's really hard to bend them and solidify and crystallize them into a set of ideologies that you can sell and make money on as a religion. So men stopped doing it, and they wanted to kill the Gnostics. As an example, does anybody in this room know what the Gospel of John was originally called? The original Gospel of John, before it was called the Gospel of John, it was called the Gospel of the Beloved Disciple, and it was not about a man, it was about a woman. Anybody know why it's called the Gospel of John? How did that happen? A guy named Irenaeus, who was absolutely lionized and sainted by the Catholic Church. Irenaeus was the first guy in the late 2nd century who started pulling together the books that would ultimately become the New Testament. And he was taking all of the Gnostic stuff, and not only was he pushing the experiential stuff off the table or anything about feminine or goddess, but he was actually killing the people that had them. Nice. Irenaeus had the Gospel of the Beloved Disciple. The name was changed from that to the Gospel of John. He had it regendered from being about a woman to being about a man. And he had the name changed to the Gospel of John. And this is the exact reason. You can research this. I wish I had Jesus and the Lost Goddess, which is a great book my friend Tim Freak wrote that's amazing. He wrote The Jesus Mysteries, which was the basis of the movie Zeitgeist. Tim's a rock star. He's amazing. But Irenaeus changed the title of that solely on a story that he heard a friend of his father's tell him when he was a child, less than 10 years old. The friend of his father's, who was a misogynist. Anybody know what misogynist means? Hates women, period. Nothing feminine, nothing experiential, no power whatsoever to women. The friend of his father told him that there's no way that the beloved disciple could be a woman. It must be a mistake. John must have been the beloved disciple. So when Irenaeus came into power, he shifted the whole thing. That's actually the only reason. Interesting.